Okay. Fourth year, we're up to siman kuf mem aleph sefei. Noyegin litein koidim purim machzis min hamatbea hakavua ba'imsei makim. The minig is that we give a half of the standard coin before Purim, whatever is like an established coin, uba'imsei zman during that time. So, for example, here we give a half a dollar. If you lived in Europe, you give a half a euro. If you live in England, you give 50 pence or whatever it's called. So wherever you live, you give half of that currency. That's 1 second. Now, why do we do that? As we said 2 days ago or 3 days ago, we were talking about the Parshas and we came up to Parsha Shkolim. So we explained that during Adar, every Yid would give towards this communal collection, and it would start it earlier, which is why we read it to Shabbos of Shabbos Mevarchim. But the point is that this was a collection that was always done. So to remember that, we do the same thing here. Now, it's not only for that reason, because then technically it doesn't have a connection to Purim or let's say Tainus Esther or something like that. So the Vart over here is that it was also connected to Haman himself. Because Haman, as we know, when he wanted to kill the Yidden, so part of his plan or part of his method of how he did it was he went to Achashverosh and he actually paid him a lot of money. There's a very famous medrash, and the Rebbe has a whole sikh about it, where it talks about the anti-Semitism of Haman versus Achashverosh. That one of them had this no reason for the hate. It was just inside of him, and the other one fell. There's a whole thing. But the point is that he paid for it. He came to him and he said, I'm going to pay you for this issue that you have, and we'll take care of it. So the Nukuda is that you see that he was willing to put out shekels to kill the Yidden. So therefore, to counter that, the Medrash says that we want that our shkolim should come first. We want, or the priest can say rather, that our shkolim should precede his shkolim, and therefore should be a good thing. So that's part of where it comes from. In addition to that, we'll see in a second that the minig became litin shalish machzios. Even though technically you're only supposed to give 1/2 a shekel. That's what all the Yidden would give, is 1/2 shekel for everyone. But so technically that's all you have to do. But the minig became we give 3/2 shekels. So there's always going to be the $3.5 coins that you're going to exchange for the dollars. The process that you do that. Now, why do we do 3? Because and actually in the parsha where it discusses the shkalim, the half shekel, it says it 3 times. So therefore, there's 3 different ones, and in the parsha it discusses 3 different types of trumas. But for the half shekel, also we do 3 remez to this. There's also another thing that Esther Amalka asked that the Yidden should fast together with her for 3 days before she went to the king. And she fasted and everything. So to commemorate the idea of the 3 fasts, so we give tzedakah, which tzedakah is a replacement or in place of the tainus. And therefore we give 3 matbeis as well. And this is also why we do it on the day of the fast, because technically you could do it Rosh Chodesh Adar, you could do it on Purim, but we don't do it on Purim. Our minig is we actually do it on the fast. So you do see that, and you'll see the relevance of that because you'll see in a second. But there is an akudah that it should be together with the fast. Now, generally what you do is you would give it on the Tainus Esther by night when you come from Mincha, whatever it is, before the Megillah. And this particular, tax or tzedakah, whatever you want to call it, is distributed particularly to the aniyim before the end of the fast. And then they're able to go with the money that they now got from the community, and they could buy their needs for Purim, and they could go and celebrate Purim properly. So it checks a lot of boxes, as they say. On one hand, it's tzedakah. On one hand, it has to do with the tainus. On the other hand, it has to do with Esther Malka. And at the same time, it also has to do with with aniyim, with Pasha giving tzedakah, so that this way they should be able to have what they need to buy the supplies that they need. Now, katan, what about a young person? So technically, these pater. Why is it katan pater? Because the whole idea of the Masa Shekel was really for a gadol, was for people that were older, right? Who had to give the coin in the trade-off? It says from 20, so it was only very particular people. So therefore, technically, a katan is pater. But if a father will give for his child once, the responsibility now becomes that you have to consistently give. In other words, if 1 year you gave and this kid is counted as part of the Yidden and the next year you don't, it's not a good thing. So therefore, once you start giving, you always give. So there are some people that don't give till the bar mitzvah, but you'll see our minig in the bottom in a second. Now, ben shloish esrei shana, once the kid is bar mitzvah, yeshemrim dechayev. Some people say he's chayev because he's an adult and he's mechuyev in all mitzvahs. But like you mentioned, the yeshemrim the pater ache he benes. Other people would say no, he's actually pater because the way. Exactly, because the way, but we're not doing it exactly like the pasuk. Then it was specifically for the Beis Hamikdash or whatever. But still, but some people say if we're trying to commemorate the idea, at least part of it, of the Machzah Shekel that was given by all the Yidden, so it's only 20 years old. So you do have those two opinions. Now, what's our meaning? So if you take a look in the bottom by Hey and Vav, so first it says Hey. Number one, it says Minagenu hu lasis Machzah Shekel b'yem tainis Esther lifnei mincha. Number one, our meaning is, as we mentioned, he says you have to give it before Purim. But he didn't pronounce so much, which I mentioned, that it also has to do with the fast itself. You want to give it as part of the fast, it's like a kapara, you give tzedakah. So if that's the case, it's connected to the Tainus Esther. So if Purim is on Sunday and the Tainus is on Thursday, then you give it on Thursday. You don't just give it Mitzvah Shabbos before you hear the Megillah. You give it even the few days before, because it's really connected to the Tainus itself. Now, what happens if you forget? When this happens, by the way, especially if you're a shliach somewhere where maybe you don't have a minyan for mincha, on the Tainus, you don't have a minyan, whatever, the first night maybe, or you're not doing something, whatever it is. So it happens. People forget. So number one, you could still give it after, even on Purim itself, meaning from when Purim starts. And even if you forget then, you try to get before the Megillah, but even if you forget then, l'chura, you can do it after Purim as well. It should be given throughout the year. This is not standard tzedakah, by the way. Standard tzedakah, you have two categories. You have meiser, which there's different levels of meiser. Then you have a minimum of tzedakah that you always need to give throughout the year. That's a separate category. It's very little. It's not a lot, but that's very separate. This is a separate nakudah specific for the fast, and it's a half a shekel. Or we do 3 as we mentioned. 5.
3 shekel?
What?
We do 3 shekel?
Yeah. Well, it's not 3 shekel. It's $3.50. So when you go out of whatever by the fast, you'll see they'll have a plate and they'll have 3 coins, and you put in a few dollars and you exchange it. If you do it, whatever your minhag is.
Like they're saying 3 shekel is what we usually get, right? Actual money in US money, that's all.
No, 3 shekel. There's no such thing as 3 shekel. It used to be they would give 1/2 shekel. The minhag became to do 3/2 shekel, but it's not really a half shekel. It's 3/2 currency, whatever your local currency is. It happens to be a $1/2. I think is worth more than $1. Yeah, technically, what you do is, at minimum, you take $1.50, you go to the plate, and you put in $1.50, and you lift the coins as if you're kind of them, and you put it back. That's the minimum. People like to give more because it's for Purim and it's going to tzedakah, so people will give a couple of dollars extra. But technically, it's $1.50. That's the exchange rate. Now, the coins themselves might be worth more, by the way. I don't know if they're even worth like pennies. They stopped making pennies because it cost them, I think, 4 cents to make a penny. So they stopped making it because it was more expensive.
Silver half coins.
Depends what year. No, no. One second. There's 2 different things. No, there's 2 different things. There's when they go for Pidyon Ben. Pidyon Ben, they're using real silver coins from pre-1963, I think it is, or something. 1964, I'm not sure, whatever year it is, that they changed it from sterling silver. So that's the same thing with Pidyon Ben. When it comes to here, technically you could use any $1/2. It doesn't have to be the silver one. What?
Happens to be, I'm very sure.
No, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
3.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
Full circuit.
Could be. Very shy. Again, they're not common. People don't use them so much. It's the shoals or the gabais or let's say the ros, whoever it is. And when he puts it there on condition that everyone should be able to be kainit and then put it back. So everyone does that. Can you walk off with it? It's a good question.
So then if you can't, how could you really be
No, so that's a matana manasa aser. Matana manasa is a legitimate matana for when it's given. But then you made a condition that after you're going to be kainit, another transaction will happen, which is you'll give it back. So they're not really dependent one on the other in a sense. So you could do that. You could make it like you could, but it wouldn't have the same idea. Meaning the idea is you want to have the actual $1/2 because that's what everyone gave. Yeah, specifically a $1/2 coin if you could. Because that's what it used to be. In the Torah it says everyone had to give a $1/2. There were no exceptions. Everyone had to give a $1/2. Now, you couldn't break it up into payment plans. Everyone had to give a half shekel. And that's the standard. You had to give it at once, and everyone had to do it. So there is an Indian to be a $1/2 specifically.
And then no one needs to pay anything?
Now?
Yeah, no, I'm saying do you need to charge?
No. You need to give the $3.50. Now you don't have to.
You buy them, they're yours, and then you're giving.
If the gabbai would gift it to you, technically you can do that. The gabbai could say, "I'm gifting you $1.50." and then it gives you the three
And it
coins,
gives kind of
and then you put it,
support.
yeah. But that's silly because then tzedakah's not getting anything. Who's in other words, how does he take it back out of tzedakah? Tzedakah has to get something. Tzedakah has to get $1.50 per person. So the question is who it's coming from. So the Gabbai gives a separate, yeah. Oh, I thought you said okay. Now so what's our minig? So number one, we said it's tied into the fast. On the bottom, we're in Sifei. Number two, gam kishachal punim b'yom rishon she'azah tanis esther mukdemas yom hey. We explained you do it on Thursday because it's specifically connected to the fast. And then in the bottom where it says Vav, he says, Minogenu, what's our minig? Do you give, do you not give? So I remember before I guess when I first got married, I didn't realize this whole thing. So I think I didn't give for my kids because it says once you give, you're supposed to constantly give. And like, what if I forget one year? So I figured better don't give until they're older, right? So, but over here he says, Minogenu, what tak is our minig? It quotes from the Rebbe that the Rebbe spoke about this a few times, and he says, Lasis machzah shekel gam bavur kol b'nei abayis. The minig is that we actually do. So people should go and they should taka give for every person. L'chora, you separate, if I'm not mistaken, meaning you can give the full money at once, I guess, but you lift the coins per person. Like you're kainet, you put it back. You're kainet, you put it back per the people. Now, one more thing over here. He says also is the Rebbe also mentions in later years something along the lines that Ketanim should give themselves also mitzat chinuch. So the parents should give them money and they should give. So I'm not sure if that's for boys or girls. I don't know that girls give it in general. I think the husband or the father does it for them. So I don't know if it would apply to girls, but and I don't know that I guess have I seen people do it? I'm trying to remember. I don't know. But the Rebbe did mention in later years that kids should also they should have their own money, even if the father gives it to them. But they should also do this as mitzvah chinuch. So there is an Inyan, but the point is everyone does it, and and that's you have to give more tzedakah on Purim anyways later. So this is separate from it, but this is a good thing to do. Okay, weiter. You had something to say?
Yeah, I'm saying like baby could do that for like a child if you have like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, stuff like that. Do you just do like the little thing of their all between and then you could stock up? Or should you just give each little like $2 or $3 for them to put
Look, so you have to do it. I mean, the father has to do it because the kids can't do it for themselves. Separately, the Rebbe said al chinuch they should do it. I don't know if it's connected. Once they're already older, then they could take it over on their own. So I don't think my parents give for me anymore. And I don't know if your parent. Well, again, depending on your minute, but once you kind of become independent, you do it on your own.
right, so since the little children, Rebbe says they should give on their own like
Yes, right. But the parent, I believe, would still give for them. See why not?
still
I think so. Yeah, the kid
on
this
top
doesn't count really.
so on top of them
Yeah.
giving and the parent will give like
Yes, I believe so. I think so. Yeah.
You have to give for them if they can't give themselves. They have to give something.
Again, you don't have to do anything until they're 13 or 20. But the Rebbe does say that they should do it. That you should give for our minig is that parents give for their kids also. So that's just the minig. I don't know if it's a minig Yisrael, it's a minig Chabad from the Rebbe. And what do we say in the Gemara that we're going to have on the test in the Sugya? Hayol v'nafik mepum mididav kahana came out from your Rebbe, so you follow it. Yeah, exactly. No, but we said specifically in the Gemara this week that once your Rebbe says it, okay, let's go further. What?
Once your rabbi says something, now you can say.
Yeah. Oh no, not that. Something else. It says that when okay, we'll leave it for the Gemara. Okay, Sivav. But Purim, when we talk about Purim, the Hainu b'Yom Arba Asar, when it comes to the 14th day of the month of Adar, Arvis, Shachris, and Mincha by all three tefillos, Omrim Balanisim. You say Balanisim and Bimei Mordechai Esther. But Ve'im Shachach, what if you don't? So Dinoi Kamei b'Chanukah, the halachas would be the same as Chanukah. If you remember that when it comes, that basically you're not chayzer if you missed it. If you're in Shemoneh Esrei and it's before the second Yiyu L'Ratzon, so the pashtus you could add it in over there. Some people do. If it's by benching, then I believe before the harachman, before mimarim, you say harachman, or after mimarim. Sorry, you say harachman hu yasalon nisim lavisena b'yom mehem es manazan. Then you could do it there. In the siddur itself, you'll see the lashon. If you ever miss it in benching, you could do that, and that's an option. But technically, you don't have to be chayzer. So once you finish davening, you wouldn't go back. Yeah.
so you wouldn't go back like
Once you take 3 steps back, then it's it. You don't repeat Shemona, so you're done. But if it's before you take 3 steps back, you just put in Valanissim. You don't go back and say the whole. You don't go from Maidim, but you just say Valanissim, and then you finish, and then that's it. Um, um, ye- There's actually 2 different things. I'm looking over here. If it's before Atayv Shimcha, then you could go back and repeat it. If it's before the second Yiyul Ratzon, but after Atay Shimcha, so you don't repeat it, but you just put it in over there. That's what it was. And then no, so if it's before Atay Shimcha, yeah, if it's before the end of the bracha Atay Shimcha, so then you would go back and then and again, what does it mean go back? It's the end of Maidim, so you're not going back to the Tzei, right? Yalav Yava, you would have to go back to before Maidim, but here it's after Maidim, so you're not really repeating that much. Okay. Siv Zayin. Chayiv kol adam ben ish ben isha. Everyone is mechuyev, men and women. Why women? Because women, even though it's zman grama, but it says similar to what we had by Chanukah also that af hein hayu ba'isei hanes. Yeah, that they also were also part of this miracle. So therefore, even though technically it's something that's mitzvah such as zman grama, but nevertheless they will participate in this as well. 1 second. But they listen to it as well. What's the chiyuv? Lishmoya kriyas hamegillah balayla ubayom. To hear the Megillah both. Number one by night and number two by day. And this is also the reason, by the way, why they're also mechuyev in the other three mitzvahs. Shalach manis, shlayach manis, right? Matanas avyenim and the Suda are all also mitzvahs as mangrama. They're all mitzvahs tied to that day. But women are mechuyev in those as well for the same reason. That afei mayu ba'isa anes, so they celebrate it in the same way. Now, so because of this, even, let's say, young girls, they should also go to shul to hear the Megillah. But if they can't go to shul, which is, some people don't always make it for sure by day, well, so then that someone has to read Megillah for them at home, because this is also a requirement that they have. And kids also, you have to bring them that they should have the chinuch of also hearing the Megillah. So in other words, the age of chinuch, which would basically be 6, 7 years old, they should also come to hear the Megillah as well in shul. But to become makan le'yaviu le'veis hakneset pranim b'yosef. But if they're too little, then don't bring them. And over here it says a unique halacha. Why? Because kids, they're going to get noisy, and when they get noisy, it disturbs other people, and then it throws everything off, and that's not going to be good. Like we'll see a little bit later about how you have to listen to it, and you can't miss any words, etc. So therefore, if they're too young, better not to bring them. Now, in bigger communities, what they'll normally do, and I guess in smaller communities too, they'll try to have multiple minyanim, like going one after another. This time here, this and this. This way, parents, fathers can go to shul and daven and hear Megillah. And then they can come home and send their wives, if they don't lane themselves, and they could watch the kids. They could do it in some way that everyone should have an opportunity to hear it. Now, if you're only laning for, we're really going to get here later. So maybe let's leave it when we talk about, maybe let's leave it to when we get to women. But one thing I'll say is like this. So the bracha will leave for later. But the other nakuda is like this. If a person is laning only for women at home, right? Let's say this particular situation, a father, let's say, goes to shul, David's mincha, right at the end of the fast, David's ma'ariv, and then his wife is not going to make it to shul. So he says, let me just go home with my Megillah and I'll lane at home. So that you shouldn't do. Because there's a separate mitzvah called Berev Am Hadras Melech. It's a very important part of this as well, because it's Persumi Nisa, it's the same nakuda. Which is why you're supposed to have a minion of some sorts. Oh, we'll get there soon. But because of this, I'm just going to see if he mentions it here. No, he doesn't mention that. So because of this, if you're taka laning for, let's say, your siblings, your sisters, or your mother, whatever it is, and there's no minion at home, so really, you should listen to Megillah first in shul. And then when you go home, you'll do it again. So in other words, if a father goes to shul, let's say in the morning, you don't leave when it comes to the Megillah and go home and lane for your family. You do it and you make the bracha and everything. And later on, you'll go and you'll lane for them. Now, what happens? Let's just say, I'm just trying to see if it comes up later. Yeah, I'm not sure if it comes up later, so we'll just say now. Let's say, before you go to shul, let's say you're going to have a very busy day. So before you go to shul in the morning, you say, you know what, let me lane the Megillah for everyone quickly. So then what do? So ideally, what you should do is have them make the bracha, right? The women, and we'll talk about the bracha soon, but you have them do it, and you lane for them, and you have in mind that you're not being yetzer from that kriya. They're being yetzer, but not you. right? The bracha is they do, and they have in mind that they're being yetzer from it. And if you make the bracha, you could also have in mind that it's for them, not for you. And later on, when you go to shul and you daven, then that's the Megillah that you listen to. That's really the best way to do it because you always want to have the added benefit of Berev Am Hadraf Melech. Okay, Sif Ches. Megillah Shalayla Asr Likras Kurdim Sesekechavim. So this people ask all the time, when's the earliest we can do this? When's the earliest we can lay Megillah Tainus Esther by night? Can we do Plaga Mincha? Because people sometimes they daven Ma'ariv early. Yeah, you go to shul, they daven Ma'ariv early. So he says over here that it's also you're not allowed to read it before Sesekechavim. Now it doesn't have to be. There's different levels of Sesekechavim we discussed. Yeah, there's Mitzvah Shabbos Sesekechavim. And then there's regular Ma'ariv day Tzeitzei and then there's the end of the fast Tzeitzei. So there's always little nuances of how big the stars are that you're looking for. We wouldn't necessarily know that, but if you look at a calendar, you'll see, let's just say one night, the end of the fast is, let's just give an example, it's 5 o'clock. But then Shabbos, if it was the day before, it's going to say Shabbos is only over at 5:30. What do you mean? What just happened? Or 5:15? Why is there a 15-minute discrepancy? Because for Shabbos, we go with a more strict version, and for other days and the fast days, we could take it a bit earlier, consider that says a So when it comes to reading the Megillah, you don't have to go with the strict Shabbos version. You can go with the earlier Zman and read the Megillah, as long as it says a for some of the things, that can count as well. Now, as we mentioned before, even though a person is very having a difficult fast, still they shouldn't break their fast early and daven Ma'ariv right away early. Instead, they should wait till the right time. And in addition to that, as we mentioned, that we said really you shouldn't break your fast before you hear the Megillah. But he says, let's say the person is it's not, let's say that the Baal Korah, they're not going to be able to do it, or something like that. So then you could taste a little bit before you read the Megillah. Kigoin, for example, coffee, kadema, to get a little bit more strength. So if it comes Friday night, if it comes the Tainus Esther by night, and the fast is over, and really you're not really supposed to eat, just like any big mitzvah. It comes to shofar, it comes to lulav. You're not supposed to eat before you do the mitzvah. So here also, you're really not supposed to eat before you do that. Now, technically, you could have a snack, and same thing like menorah. If you needed to, you could have a mezainis a little bit, or a little bit of drink, or a little bit of that. You technically could. We prefer not to have anything similar to shaking the lulav and esrog on Hanukkah. We prefer not to have anything on Hanukkah, not to Hanukkah before you light the menorah. You always prefer not to do anything before, but if you need to, you're hungry or whatever, and you're going mitzvah, you're not going to go until late. So technically, you could break your fast before with a little bit of taste if you really needed to. But again, we prefer not to. The preference would be is that you fast till the end of the Megillah, and that's what you should do. If I'm not mistaken, I remember there was a Baal Korah when I was in Crown Heights growing up. I don't know that he was a Chabad guy, actually. And he, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember, he used to they would bring him a glass of water before he laid. It used to take him a very long time. He was like a Veltisha guy. It was one of the local Crown Heights shows. And he would have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he'd have a glass of water before he laid. And then he would lay, and it was like a very long kriya of like 40 minutes, 45, whatever it was. So you could. Technically, you could. In other words, the fast is over. But it's a big mitzvah, and we don't like to eat before we do the big mitzvah, like other times. So therefore, you would do that. Now, if it's God, like we mentioned, then you could, obviously, if you have to. Now, because Megillah is a very important one, to the degree that Megillah is mevatel Talmud Torah. Not all mitzvahs you're not mevatel Talmud Torah to do a lot of things. But when it comes to hear the Megillah, you would even be mevatel Torah, meaning you would stop learning if you were Torah, someone who's Torah of Naseh, whatever it is, to hear the Megillah. So therefore, we see that it's a very important thing, and that's why we don't want to eat it or anything before. And that includes other stuff also, by the way, not just that. Okay, yeah, what were you saying? No, well, yeah, technically. I mean, you're not being mevatlet. Torah itself, you stop to go to the bathroom also, right? Meaning you could stop for certain things. So this would be something that you could stop for. 1 second. You had a question, or you were just squeezing them all? Oh, yeah.
It's a very big idea to read your fast, but it's going to make you enjoy the Megillah more, or actually be able to focus on doing the Megillah.
You should not. It's not a good thing to break fast. If you have to, you could. The fast is technically over, but we really try not to. If a guy's sitting and he has no energy to stand, and he has a headache, and he could really follow along, no, then for sure you should break your fast. You're not breaking your fast. Fast is over, so you just.
And you're going to go in the middle of marriage. You used to.
Well, as we mentioned yesterday, it's not really in middle of Ma'ariv per se, because you already said a Kaddish with Tiskapa. It's not a full. You wouldn't not exactly middle of the night. So you could have a glass of water if you needed or something else. Okay, you can wait a few minutes. We'll be done in a few minutes. Yeah. Okay, let's go further.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Okay, let's do that. Fine. So we'll stop here and what time we do that? We'll meet for Chazara at 4 o'clock. 4:02.
Oh, this, we got